All right. So I want to put this video out because in my spare time, I do a lot of perusing for either SWTOR news that doesn't go generally viewed by the public, or I don't know, maybe some leaks, or just any information I could find about Star Wars: Old Republic behind the scenes or anything like that. So I was trolling around and I'd never seen this article from 2018. Former SWTOR former developer Daniel Erickson talks about game development. And this shines some really interesting things about SWTOR. Shines a light on interesting things about SWTOR. And if you haven't read this article, there's actually some things that he talks about that really shines a light on the philosophy and the really method of the game design and how things have changed at the studios since the game first started being developed. Like this line right here, at the peak of Bioware Austin SWTOR development, they had 200 plus developers, with about that many more working off-site, freelance, etc. So they had 200 developers in-house, and then but they also had 200 more possibly freelance, outsource, and doing other things working for the studio. That is a massive team, and no wonder why why Star Wars: Old Republic feels front-loaded with content right now. Even front-loaded with content at that point, because a lot of the content for this game is really at the very front, the 8 classes and the class storylines. Apparently a lot of this stuff is taken from a Reddit thread, or all of it was taken from a Reddit thread, and a lot of this also shines a light with the mentality behind the development of the game. So right here, the center paragraph, it says, as we were sold twice, first to an investment company, then to EA, the pressure for this to be the mega hit meant that the finger kept being pointed at WoW. The problem, of course, is when you say, okay, first we copy the most successful MMO of all time, then you've pretty much set yourself up for misery. If you stand in the hallway of the first 3 chapters and don't look around too much on the sides, you can feel what James and I both originally wanted to build, but there was no path forward on spending basically all of BioWare's money and risking everything on a game nobody had ever seen. We actually did try some action combat stuff. Saber locking was awesome until a third person jumped in to shank you. But there were just too many battles to fight at once, so we backed off to something safer. So that shows what was going on at Bioware at the time. The finger was pointed at World of Warcraft because everyone wanted to make a WoW killer, which, yeah. But as we can see at launch, this game is basically, Star Wars: Old Republic is basically a WoW clone with a few novel things thrown in, with a Bioware zing thrown in for story. Basically, one of the only ways you could prove on World of Warcraft is basically do what Bioware did and create a storyline where you can choose how it goes. We even get a tiny little glimmer of something that they were working on in apparently a build of the game. Saber locking, action combat, and stuff like that sounds amazing. But they said it was good until a third person jumped in to shank you. He said there were too many battles to fight at once, so we backed off to something safer. And you can kind of feel where Bioware and SWTOR played it safe in its development, because there's a few things that stand out, but a lot of the things is just copy and pasted. And unfortunately, this article also shines a light on the pressure that EA had on Bioware at the time. And it's great to hear this from the horse's mouth, because at least we all figured, and we all should speculate what kind of pressure Bioware was under when developing Star Wars: Old Republic, but this line right here basically seals the deal. The game didn't do as well as EA hoped because they wanted to unseat the king, World of Warcraft, with the same product instead of leaning into what Bioware was great at. But that never happens, and anytime your business model is, let's be the best-selling game ever or we lose, well, you can imagine. Guild Wars would not be considered successful under EA's model. We all know the strategy of these AAA publishers nowadays. If it's not making all the money in the universe, it's not enough money. And EA and Activision were two of the biggest proprietors of this mentality. So for me, this is the first time I'm seeing this because I've only recently become starting to dig, but it's great to hear this from the horse's mouth. And for anyone who didn't know any about this, I will link this information about this in the description below. For me, as someone who, you know, used to design games a lot, I really don't have a lot of time to do this anymore because life. Hearing him talk about the hero engine was actually really interesting to me because I wanted to know more, like why they chose to use this engine. But it's funny because this paragraph right here, he talks about the hero engine. Hero engine. That engine, woo. When I wrote the book on the making of the game, I tried to get our original lead engineer, Bill Balton, to talk about the hero engine, and the lawyers removed every other word he said, so I had to ditch the section. Holy crap. What's wrong with this engine? Why I mean, you can get the engine, you can buy it. Like, you can buy the engine. It's there. Like, well, what didn't they want to talk about? Like some in-house tools that they didn't want people to know that they had? Because obviously they developed a bunch of tools to go onto the game that wasn't standing in the engine because software engineers, but what? That's ridiculous. For anyone who didn't know anything about this, I just really wanted to share this information with you guys, and I wanted to talk about it on my channel because I love to dig up all this stuff on Star Wars: Old Republic. I like to know about what's going on. So if anyone has any information and they want to send my way, please send it my way. I'd love to read this stuff and share it with the community so that we can know, because I really wish Bioware would talk to us, but they don't. Anyway, guys, that's my time. Thank you guys very much for watching the video. If you guys like what you see here, you guys can subscribe, hit the like button, and talk to me about it in the comments. What's one of the most interesting things you'd want to know about Star Wars: Old Republic? What goes on behind the scenes? Would you guys be down with hearing from the developers more often? I know I would. But anyway, that's my time. Remember, always never trust a hut. Always save the blue Twi'leks. Retore Shemi, and may the Force